What's up, guys? Welcome to Project GoodSpeed. I'm Jay, and this is my little hatchback, and for the longest time, my Civic here has had a little bit of an issue with the driver's seat. Let me show you guys what I mean. So this is what my seat looked like before, and now, check it out. This is what it looks like after. Boom. Now, the Civic here is actually my daily driver, and I do just basic upgrades and, certain installs that I get the need to do. I'll actually eventually end up replacing these. I know that for a fact. I just don't know which ones I want just yet, and also I have to save up the money for them. But in the meantime, I thought I could at least try to repair these and see how hard it was. So, there's a bolt on this side, but there's no bolt on this side. You guys think if I just remove this, it'll be free? Because Dude, I'm gonna break shit, and I know it. I know it. If you're watching this video at this point, you probably know it. This piece here is attached to the entire frame, right? So even if I could get that bolt off, I could take that one off, and the one I already took off, which is just two, and I can get the whole thing to come off. But once I glue the new foam into place, there will be no way of me putting it back together, you see? So I'm gonna have to find a new way to do this. I gave up. I just took it apart. This little clip is keeping me from lifting the whole thing off. I'm just gonna cut it. Oh, great, there was two. And not only that, I just broke it without having any idea if I can put it back in. Look at all the carnage and destruction that sliding in and out of your seat has caused. And like I said, the big issue is actually just gonna be to bolt this back into place, because if I glue this shut, I don't know how they managed to, tighten this thing in there, and I don't know how I'm gonna do it. Maybe I'll cut a hole here straight through to just be able to access that one bolt. Most Hondas from this area typically have the same problem. I noticed that when I go to the junkyard to go looking for parts, I see a bunch of Hondas having this little issue here, right? And it comes from just sliding in and out of your seat, right? This is the driver's side, so this is the part that makes contact first, and basically when you sit down, you kind of just stretch the fabric, and then that puts stress on the stitching. And then over time, if you neglect it long enough, like I have, you can see here, the damage goes beyond the fabric and into the foam, right? And it's just chipping away at this point. It just keeps, you can see it's just falling all over on the side there, and even in my car. Now, even that being said, this one isn't really that bad. I've seen some that are a lot worse. Even my little Ford Ranger. This is my Ford Ranger. It's pretty hopeless. Nothing but bare foam exposed, and the fabric is basically just falling off. So this is what happens when you neglect your problems like this. I think the seat might have actually fallen under also, so that's gonna be awesome to fix. Now, in order to repair this issue, I'm gonna be using this foam here. As you guys can see, it's pretty dense. This is just slightly firmer, I think. I'll put the specs up for what this foam has in the description. I'll put the link down there. I bought this on Amazon, and it's like 3 inches, and it's semi-firm, and it's like 72 inches long, which I plan to use on my Ford Ranger. Like, comment, and subscribe if you guys want me to do, if you guys want to see what I do with the Ford Ranger, because I don't really know exactly what I'm going to do with it just yet. I just know that it desperately needed some of this padding. Oh, no. Yeah, I couldn't put it back. Let's see how comfortable this. To be honest, it's not that comfortable. I would have thought it'd be a little bit more cushiony, but it's not quite firm enough. Yeah, I'll probably only need a little section here, and the rest of that should be enough for the Ranger. Now, I'll also be using this tiny little Amazon sewing kit that I bought for like 9 or 10 bucks, I think. And it's basically only because of the needles here, right? I didn't really care about the thread, but the needles are the most important ones, are the little hook ones, because I don't want to be grabbing these. I'll also be using this Gorilla Glue upholstery adhesive, an old serrated knife, and this steamer here. Now, I'll be using the steamer here basically just to return this foam padding back to its regular position before I start cutting, because I don't know, but you probably can't see, but certain parts of this are pretty bouncy while other ones are kind of firm, and I just want to loosen it all up before I start cutting to make sure I have an even spread of the new foam padding. Okay, now I do want to mention that I am by no means an expert, and if you've watched any of my videos or basically the rest of this video, you'll find out pretty quickly that I'm not. So any advice you guys have, just comment down below, and any updates on my trial and error process, I'll post in the description. So let's get started. Now my first instinct is to just throw it on here and glue it, but I fuck up a lot, so I'm gonna go ahead and assume that is not the right way to do it. So here's what I'm thinking, right? I wanna go ahead and get down some flat edges to make sure I have a lot of adhesive to keep it in place. Now, like I said before, I'm not an expert. As far as I'm concerned, I could just throw a piece of foam in here and just sew it back into place, and it's good enough for me. But I also want to connect both the overlay here with the under part here. My thinking is this, right? I'm gonna go ahead and just like cut flat on this end and lay down a piece of the foam here. Okay, so I ended up changing my mind, and I'm gonna go ahead and use this little sliver looking thing to kind of like wedge it in there like this. This sliver here, I basically just put a piece of styrofoam up to it and then just like traced it out and then cut it out. And then I'm gonna go ahead and use the other piece that I cut the sliver out of to kind of just like sandwich over it, and then I can go ahead and shape it after that. I did have to cut out a little sliver here to get a flat edge to glue it on. And I do want to mention at this point that I did actually stick a screwdriver right through here just to be able to mark. So when I go ahead and try to screw it in, I can know exactly what I need, where I need to cut out, right? So just for reference. So I got this little notch fit right in there, and I used this giant piece that I didn't cut into instead of the part that I did, because I realized that it wouldn't be high enough. I don't know if you can tell, that side is a lot higher than this side would have been. So instead, I'm gonna use the side I didn't touch and just level it out after. Now I did leave a little notch here, this little overhang, and I cut a notch into here. So I'm gonna slide it in there, and hopefully that will keep this piece from coming off, and I'm gonna actually glue it as well. Okay, so it's glued on there, sort of. Oh no, how did I not see this? Where did this come from? Oh man, it's already glued on there. Shit. Oh well, I'll just glue this back on there too. Now the hard part is gonna have to be actually sculpting this, because my tools are not the most ideal ones. They are a little bit uncooperative at times, and I don't know how to do this. But hard part is done. As long as I get it close enough to where it needs to be, if I just shove it back into the fabric, it'll be all right. Here it is, final product. Well, sort of. It's close enough. It's fine. We gotta look at it. I kind of cut it, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be perfect because, well, you know, it's a Honda. And the little kit, the little sewing kit came in clutch with these little tape measures. Really helped me out finding the peak on both of these and getting it kind of close, right? So I measured it from down here to up here to make sure I knew at what distance the peak had to be. And then I measured from here to the top of the peak, right? So the base to the top, to make sure I had the right size and the right curvature. Close enough. I think that's pretty good. Now, before I can actually sew it back together, unfortunately, I have to put it back into the seat, right? Because as you guys can see, I cut a hole here to allow me to screw it back into place. Otherwise, I won't be able to fasten it. So we're gonna go ahead and just throw it back in here. Oh, and I've got these little makeshift hooks that I'm going to be trying to install into the fabric here to hold it in place. Hopefully that's good enough. I do want to mention though that I did glue the foam to the frame, if you guys remember, with the spray adhesive, and that made it really hard to put this back into place. But you know, I just slid a knife through there and just cut through the adhesive, and we're pretty much good to go. And I'm gonna shove this little insert into that little piece right there so that you won't be able to see that. I got the foam in there, and it looks a little bit spongier than it's supposed to, as opposed to this, right? It looks solid. This looks like a chewed up sponge or whatever. It's just due to the fact that I'm using the way I use the serrated blade to kind of shape it, and that's the result. But anyway, we're gonna move on to the sewing part, and I'm gonna start off with this tiny one just to get at least a little bit of practice before I move on to this big one. Now, depending on how your guys' fabric look, this might not even be an option, just like this down here, right? I don't really know how to fix that. What I've got here is 2 hook needles attached to 1 thread that I kind of like twisted to make it stronger because my thread is not as thick as the OEM one. So I'm using just 1 really long one, folded in on itself and twisted up. I put it through. Here's what we got, 1 on each side, right? And what's next is I'm gonna go ahead and feed 1 side through the other hole, like this. I don't wanna pull too tight, so just leave it there. And then just make sure they come out on the same length. Let's go. Now when I pull it, the seam kind of just disappears. Now, just gotta repeat this for this entire length. These needles hurt, and it's very important you go straight across and not diagonally. See, I lost the seam here. Because the fabric here is too damaged, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up the stitching and just like hide more of the fabric inside the seam. Instead of sewing straight down like that, I'm gonna open them up and start sewing like that, so that when I pull, it'll kind of just get stuck in there. That's pretty much it. Now it's time to tie it off. 1 loop, 2 loops, and then tie it in the direction of the stitching. And it should stay tight. Of course, now we're just gonna go ahead and run the needle through 1 more time so we can go ahead and cut it. I did this one using a really long piece, folded it on itself to make it twice as strong, but it really made pushing the needle through really hard because of the knot and the like 4 times the wire string. So this time I'm gonna go with 1 single strand with 1 knot because this needles on this side kept coming off the fabric with all the pulling. And this is a lot longer of a stitch, so I'm gonna be here a minute. They got away from me last night. This took a lot longer than I thought. It really made my hand sore. But overall, I think it looks pretty great. You can't really tell that much where I did it. I think the padding might be a little too short. You guys can see the fabric's kind of rippling when I run my hand through it, indicating that the foam isn't really stretching it out. Whereas on this side, well, it's pretty much similar actually. It's much more noticeable down here. You guys can see there's a lot more loose fabric than there is on this side. And that's just because I only put the foam padding up to like right here, if you guys remember, and not so much down this way. So now all we gotta do is just throw it into the hatchback and call it a day. And check it out. Pretty much done. Except for this hole here. Yeah, this is way beyond my expertise. I don't know how to fix that. It's a hole in the fabric. That's pretty much a goner for me. I mean, I could just throw in a patch in there and just sew around it, but then that'll just look ugly. I mean, that would fix it, but it just look ugly. Let me go ahead and test it out. See if you can, yeah, it definitely hugs you. I think it's because of this padding on this side. It's a little bit thinner than this one now, just because it's worn out more. Or maybe I just added a little bit more, but definitely provides a little bit more support on this side than it does on that side. And more importantly, now that I fixed this stupid tear, I can stop leaving all these foam particles all over my freaking carpet. It just makes the whole car look a lot dirtier than it actually is sometimes. And that annoys me. I definitely like the way it came out. It genuinely looks pretty OEM. Overall, would I do it again? Sure. I mean, the price for the sewing kit was 10 bucks, glue 12 bucks. That giant foam, which now is gonna take up space somewhere until I fix my truck. That I think cost about 35 bucks. So yeah, and I had a whole bunch of leftover, honestly, even from that cutting. And you know, upholstery repair is not cheap. They would have definitely charged me a lot for this. And not to mention I would have to been on their own time. And I got this done in basically less than a day, not the entire day, but I would have been done in one day. Plus it was also hot in here. That AC sucks. That's gonna be it for this video, guys. I'm still in the process of finding a whole bunch of AC parts over there. I've got some there, but that's for another video. So take care and Goodspeed.